Wow, this is a beautiful forest here. Is this your forest, Peter?
This is mine.
Oh, wow, wow. So we're going to stand really close.
Yep.
Okay. We're really close today because we just want to be close, I guess, in nature. I'm here today with Lark and Peter is a forester. Lark is a craftsperson.
Hand weaver.
Hand weaver of birch bark. And so what we're going to see today on In My Backyard, and I'm Jody, is we're going to see how you fell the tree, how you determine what the birch should look like, and how to get started on making these beautiful creatures. And this beautiful little bird here, which I think I purchased at the Walpole Farmers Market, but you can get them at Hannah Grimes and other places around the region. This is just absolutely wonderful. I hang this in my office at work. Wonderful. And it's very relaxing. So, you know, I'm really excited to see how the process all works.
There you go.
So you've got bark here.
We did a trial on the tree to make sure it was ready. There is a critical moment where the bark will come off the tree.
So much to know.
Well, it's good. It's good not to fight the process. So this will give 4 beautiful layers.
Excellent.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm gonna let you guys do the process, and we're just gonna sit back and take a look.
Good.
All right.
Good. I might
Anything you want me to take?
Bird.
All right. Good.
We make a longitudinal cut, and then it takes time to lift the bark. So you'll have time to.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay. So.
Okay, well,
yep.
Get a cut started down this. The base of the tree probably isn't going to really good bark, but once we get up a little ways.
Yep. And when Jody returns, we'll make sure she gets a close-up of your knife, because the hooked blade really makes a difference. So.
Certainly makes it easier to get that first cut.
Yep. It's lifting very easily there. It's sticking a little down at the base here. But where did I make my... Yeah, we might start here anyway. So
Narrow piece off here.
Oh yes, that would be lovely, and then the camera would be able to... A little bit of an injury there. There must be an injury to the tree
scar
there.
on the tree there.
Yep. But that's okay.
Go.
That gives us a sample piece.
Remove up the tree.
Yep. So
it will get better.
can see the growing bark on the inside next to the wood, and they're very beautiful colors in this bark. And when I go to work with it, I will oil it. That will bring the colors forward. This is much thinner than the tree we were on yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's ready. It really is. You're hoping to do a fairly long piece here?
Well, what would you like?
Any way it comes, Peter. Seems to be tearing there a bit. Yep. All right. It's sticking on this side, which it sometimes does. All right. We left the base where the snow tends to cover the bark, and it's a disappointing quality anyway. We took one sample piece here where you can see the growing bark. This is the new layer. Very, very beautiful and wonderful for baskets if the tree is big enough. This is a smallish tree. I think probably I'll do ornament work with the bark. So now we're working our way up, and Peter has made a longitudinal cut. If you're able to focus on his knife for a moment, it's really wonderful to have a curved blade. It grabs down into that living layer. Otherwise, people tend to lift the outer bark and they don't get the wonderful inner bark. So basically, what we'll be doing, Jody, is just working our way up the tree, either until it starts really sticking, or it gets so small that it's not the size that I can use.
So how many layers are you going to be able to get out of
Well,
this?
you have it with the bird. I think I'll probably get 4, and I'll be able to show you how I do that.
So you take it off almost like paper.
You do. It behaves a little differently than paper. Maybe I can do a little here. The lenticels tend to stick, Jody, and anywhere that there's a disturbance in the growth, it grabs. You can separate the layers, but you have to be really patient, and you have to go carefully. But you can see here we're getting 2 lovely layers. These are basket weight, these 2. But for doing ornaments, I probably could take it down and not take another here and take another here. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, let's make a little cut right there.
Yeah, I think so.
Right there.
Yeah.
See if we can get this piece off.
This is what's called summer bark. The native people used winter bark also, much more difficult to remove from the tree. But summer bark, as you can see, comes off readily. It is an amazing feeling to walk away from a tree. You've just taken its living skin. It's a little difficult, but Peter will use all of this. I think that's at the heart of this tradition, is using the whole tree.
This tree will go into firewood, right into our wood shed. Another year's wood supply. If the trees were a little bigger, we'd put them into thaw logs.
The bark tends to stick on the side that had less light, I have noticed. And it will darken within an hour even. This will go as sort of a cinnamon color, and the bark will darken as it ages too. You got that one? It's sticking quite a bit on one side, but it's still very beautiful bark. I don't know how to convey this to the camera, but it's very supple. It's not brittle. And when you go to work it, you want to recreate that to a certain extent. It will lose some of its inner moisture, But if you stored it out of direct light and away from heat, it stays wonderful for years and years.
So maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you got started with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you learn all of this stuff about the
Yes,
bark?
well, Peter and I have been doing this now for over 30 years. I began with a book that was published in Sweden. The Swedish government sponsors handwork. They have a different system than what we have. And I obtained a book by one of the teachers in their system. And we kind of learned by trial and error. And a lot of things you just learn with your hands. As you do something, you find what works, and then you build on that. I think when Peter and I began, we were harvesting trees that were really too old for what I wanted to do, and that's something I would say is you try to choose a lovely tree, a lively, beautiful tree. If you're going to do this, will make a huge difference. One thing people need to understand about birch bark, the strength in the bark runs with the grain around the tree. It does not have strength on the length of the bark. A bark like hickory bark, you would be cutting, running the length of the tree. The birch, you've got to work with the width, and so you're limited by the circumference of the tree. And I think that lies at the heart of the plaited tradition, because you can let in new weavers and tuck the ends in and create really quite a large basket. But you've got to have a tree big enough to get started.
Have you mentioned anything about the lenticles, Lark?
I really haven't.
What are the lenticles?
Well, the markings here. Peter, do you want to?
Well, you'd probably say it better in terms of how it affects the bark.
Let's see if I can hold this up. Beautiful bark. What I consider beautiful bark has it has lovely distancing between the lenticels, and they're healthy. You can see how they shine. If you harvest a tree that is past its prime, the lenticels become weak points in the bark. And it can be very frustrating trying to work with that bark. It just doesn't have the strength that you want. This is beautiful bark, even though it is sticking in the middle. It's very, very lovely. You can see the color that will come forward. If I apply oil to this, it will be a rich, dark color. And I do think we're going to get probably 4 or 5 layers out of this tree. So.
Now, Lark, do you think that we should cut the tree and roll it a bit to start our cut here and get a longer section?
Okay. Yeah, it's
we can
consistently.
Do that, if that would help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't get the chainsaw then.
Okay.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut off the section, since we're just putting it into firewood. It doesn't have to be any particular length. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to cut off the section we've already peeled, and then I'm going to find a poor spot in the stem where the bark probably won't be too good anyhow, and I'll cut it again there. And that'll give us some flexibility to roll this next section around, and then we can make our cut on one side of the place where it's sticking and get some longer strips of bark that will be more easily workable.
your pile beginning, if you can put it out of the sun in a shady spot, it just is important. I'm going to stow it over here. Yeah. If the bark dries too quickly, you're lessening the quality of it. It's really good to let it dry slowly and not with heat. Really keep it away from heat.
So why don't you come closer and just show us a little bit about what you think is really great about these a couple of pieces. And
well, the first thing I would say, it is beautifully flexible. It's hard to convey to the camera. Fresh bark is a total joy to work with, and it will, if stored properly, it will maintain some of this softness and flexibility. And that, that becomes my job when we leave here, is to pile it carefully and put weight on it. I like the color. I like the spacing of the lenticels. The width is a useful width. In other words, the size of the tree was big enough for what I do, for ornament work. Yeah. So, all right. So this is much better, having the pieces of wood separated.
Well, we got to see where
the sticky?
Yeah.
Okay, it seemed to be opposite. Yep.
So I'm thinking maybe come along here.
Yep. And that actually, that's an interesting point. Really weathered pieces of bark, although they're beautiful in their own right, this is not the part of the bark that I'll actually be using. It's seen too much weather. So what we're after is the supple living layers that are attached to the tree. Anywhere that a branch was, anywhere that an injury occurred to the trunk, it becomes difficult to work with that bark. You can, but you have to go carefully with it. That's a very lovely stretch right in there.
Is that it? We want to go there.
Yep. Yeah, stick in here.
Nice up here.
Good. The tree we felled yesterday, by comparison, we dropped it and made one longitudinal cut, and the bark just like flew off the tree, So each tree is different. Each tree is different. And it's too bad that the camera can't document the smell, because the smell is so beautiful when you are lifting the bark. It's really sticking. All right. Well, thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. And I'm glad we found some usable bark for you.
Yes.
Add to your collection, and there'll be more when we need it. So.
Wonderful. And you had said earlier, but all of this will be used for firewood. Every bit of the tree will be put to use.
And it'll be going in the woodshed for next year's wood supply. Yep.
So, all right.
The lark, if you look up there at the crown, you'll see that there's hardly any space at all that this tree was taken up. Those trees that were surrounding it all had just a little bit of a head start on it. And in a couple of years' time, they'll take up all the space that this tree was using up there.
Yep.
Even if we had left this one, it would have no place to grow.
No.
So.
And I wonder whether some of the sticking of the bark was reflecting some of the state of the tree.
Oh, I'm sure. It wasn't not being a dominant tree in the stand. It was already being somewhat suppressed, and the bark wasn't quite as healthy as it might have been otherwise.
Yep. So, well, good. Glad we have it.
So let me just. So thank you, Peter. for felling the tree. You did a great job. I think you've done this before.
I have.
And you said 30 years?
Yes.
Wow,
And
wow.
I've probably been cutting trees for about somewhere around 46.
Wow, wow. It went down perfect. Yeah. So this is great. Now we've got to go back to your studio.
Sure.
And figure out which peaches you're going to use. And I think Peter's going to finish up the rest of this for tonight. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
you got a little bit of work ahead of you.
Every bit of bark.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah, we can.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll
good.
see you in my backyard in the studio.
All right.
Okay.
We've been managing this wood for quite a while. My great-grandfather first bought this in 1902, so it's been in the family for about 110 years now. And it was logged, it was pasture back when he was here. And it was logged over in around 1950, and it suffered some in the 1938 hurricane. And this particular stand of pine trees, this is where we picked raspberries when I was young.
And look how solid
yeah.
it is now.
These trees are mostly seeded in either after the 38 hurricane or after the harvest in 1950.
Happens fast.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Your studio, right outside the studio, I guess.
Yes.
And you've got some of the birch from yesterday.
From yesterday.
Okay.
That's
And then
correct.
today's.
And today's.
Okay.
And what I want people to understand, if bark is left and not weighted, it's going to curl the way it grew, which makes perfect sense. You're going to have an upward movement. If you pile all your pieces of bark facing the same way, which I did my first year, you're going to have a terrible time getting them apart. So what you need to think about is a good place. I will probably move this into the garage. You want to keep it away from the sun, away from heat, and weight it down. I like to pile the bark in 4 different ways so that the tension in the bark is counteracted by the other pieces. So the first layer would be face up, grain running this way. Next layer, face down, grain running opposite. And third layer would be face up, grain running across, and so on. And when I'm done with, say, the whole year's harvest, and we don't take that many trees because I use everything, I'll put a door on top. I'll really give it some good weight. So that's the next step in this sequence from the tree to the product. And I just want to make sure people know the harvest of the bark occurs in a very narrow time frame of about 2 weeks, sometimes 3, right around summer solstice. That is when the bark will slip. And you can take a knife and make a little slit on the trunk and just test with your fingers. If the bark is going to slip, you'll be able to slip your finger in. If it's not ready yet, you'll know immediately. So, there.
Interesting, Lark. Thank you so much. So today we've been in my backyard with Lark Leonard. She's from Langdon, New Hampshire. And Lark, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about taking the bark off and then learning what to do with the bark?
Yes, well, you can find me at the Walpole Farmers Market every 3rd Friday of each month. And you're welcome to call me. Also, we are in the phone book. My last name is Leonard, and the number is 835-2573. We are very fortunate to have a book recently published by a birch bark artist from Russia. The book is in English, and yes, much easier.
Yeah.
The Toadstool can certainly order a copy if you're inspired by what we're doing. And I know we mentioned this, but I urge people to harvest responsibly. If you cut a tree, please use that tree. Use all of it. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, the black flies are getting us, and I know you can probably see a black fly in your lens, so you can tell how bad they are today, but that's the way it is here in New England. Now, I want you to try to come back and join us for the In My Backyard show. We will have a future show that will show you just how to do the little birds or baskets and different little things, and some of the history with the things that Lark has done. So please join us again in My Backyard. If you're interested in more information about us or have questions or would like to be a sponsor, you can also catch us on Facebook. All kinds of different things. We just want you to get involved. This is a community program. So if you're interested in getting a hold of us, email us at inmybackyardch8@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to get back to you. So thank you again, Lark, and
Thank you.
we'll see you again in My Backyard.
All right.